What's great is then you get that buyer's information and now they're on your buyer's list. What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast. I am your host, Mike DeHaan, here with Dylan Cook today. The little bald guy, Dan Austin, is gone. He is out mowing lawns at one of our flips because we have this flip up in Idaho, which if you guys don't know anything about Idaho, it is like everything red. Like it is the most like Trump place right now. And they've had a pretty excessive ICE presence up there with, they want to have their own country. And would you believe it? Getting people to go and do general labor is now fucking impossible. So it had gone so far that like all of like the landscaping people and stuff that we know in that area, they're just like won't do it. They promised us that Americans want to do the work, but none of the ones that we know actually want to do the work. And Dan got so frustrated that he had offered a landscaper $500 to drive out here and cut the grass. And the guy was like, "Nah, I don't got time."
Oh my God.
I was like, so out of control. So Dan loaded up his shit today into his truck to go and cut the grass on this flip that we're going to be listing.
How far away is it from you guys?
2 hours each way.
Oh my God.
And there's like the people that are 45 minutes away, they just won't do it. I'm like, why? I don't understand.
How big is this lot?
It's not big. It's like a standard. It's like maybe, I don't know, just over like between a quarter acre, half acre, probably 0.4 of an acres.
Okay.
It's so standard. And no one will do just like the little stuff. It's easy to get people out there that are going to do like a big job, right?
Yeah,
but like the little nicky-nacky stuff that happens at the end of a flip, the stuff that you would traditionally hire kind of cheap labor for, or you would have, maybe a person that is maybe legal, maybe not, that would go out and do, impossible right now. And then like from Spokane, 2 hours each way, like that's really a big ask for somebody to go and do that. But like most of them won't go out there. They also, a lot of them won't be like bonded out in Idaho. And if they have a real business, they're kind of concerned about that. But there's also like the whole just like dynamics of going out there and everything else, and they just won't do it. So
it's
Dan's
so funny because it's, we talk about the podcast, what's your best return on time? Like, your dollar per hour task. Dan's out there mowing fucking yard.
Yeah. Well, he tried to pay for it and he couldn't find anybody.
Yeah, I understand.
But because also too, there's the time component. So the house is hitting the market tomorrow and like it had to be done today.
You getting your pictures today?
Yeah. So it's all getting done today. Right. And we were, like we could have had someone do it like next week that had availability, but like we just can't wait that long, know? And so we were just kind of pushed up on that as well. It's just a whole situation.
Well, this is also the other side of that same token is, rolling up your sleeves when you have to, and doing the shit that's necessary. So
for sure, man. And people like, if you're a small business owner, that's always going to exist on some level, right? Like even if you go back to June, we had both of our main partners who run acquisitions were gone. Dan was gone and it was a Sunday. So I'm out walking houses again. Mm-hmm. I haven't walked houses in like years. Right. But like the sellers come in, I'm not going to like not do the opportunity because I'm like, oh, sorry, our sales team isn't available. It doesn't make any sense.
And just think of the lost potential revenue if like something like that happens.
Yeah. Well, for $17,500 because I got a freaking contract signed.
There you go.
Sold it.
There you go. Love that.
Right? So yeah, but there's this old farce with small business where people think that you can kind of just throw money at it or throw people at it, which you can always try, but it's never a guarantee. And at the end of the day, no one's going to care about your business as much as you, and you do need to be able to roll your sleeves up after a little point. But,
100%.
So anyways, but yeah, the money models thing as we started when we were jumping in, you mentioned like who are the customers of wholesale businesses, or I would say any real estate business, right? And fundamentally, you're a customer, unless you're like, I guess, a listing agent. But if you're a buyer's agent, if you're a flipper, if you're a wholesaler, your main customer is your buyer, right? At the end of it, like you need to be putting together your quote unquote offer in whatever package you are putting together to just like find a buyer for that property, because that's ultimately the one who's going to be giving you the money and making the decision. And I think a lot of people, especially in wholesale real estate, because we use the term acquisitions and sales team to talk about like finding properties, but really that's your procurement. Like that's not that different from having people that are going to China to negotiate with the shoe factory, right? It's probably just as frustrating in the conversations with the irrationality as talking to a crackhead in Eastern Washington. But the buyers, the offers that you can put together can be things like, wholesale, like holding back your wholesale fee if there's going to be a holdback on the property. If it's on the retail side, it can be buyer concessions. It can be things that you're willing to do to the property. We have one right now that we just listed that doesn't have air conditioning. It's quite hot here. So one of the things that we put on our listing was that we are willing to basically buy portable air conditioning units for people if that is a concern. That isn't like in the open notes, but our realtor has the ability to say that if that is something that comes back as an objection piece from potential buyers. It's a few hundred, maybe a few $1,000s for those, but if that allows us to stand out, like that is fundamentally the offer that you're putting together.
We did something similar because some of our rentals have just been stagnant. And so I just had marketed my first concession of 2 months free rent. And so it's a commercial building. So like getting the actual rent instead of lowering rent makes more sense in this scenario from an NOI perspective. But, I haven't had to do that since we started, but now it's a marketing piece of, okay, you want 2 months free rent, which you're not paying until now, September, November. That appeal to somebody, right? So
totally. And then I think the key with that and where a lot of Alex Moses stuff with the money models really applies to real estate is using them to get eyes on the property, right? As opposed to, because like there isn't really like a coercion piece to real estate. It's not like you're getting someone to swipe their credit card on your e-commerce website, but the value, and I would say the tricky part with real estate is getting the actual potential buyers to see it. And that's where, or like when they do see it, if they like everything but XYZ, having like a plan for that already and knowing that is probably a potential opportunity to get a deal closed at that point.
One thing I know that I'm bad at is not marketing, like on the dispo side, is probably as much as I should. I text and call the same people like that I've sold stuff to. And sometimes your best buyer for that specific deal is someone who is newer, looking for their first flip. They're like, hey, I don't care if I make 50 and 20 grand. I'm looking for experience on this one. Right. Yeah. And those are going to be the one-off people. But I mean, this buyer that just backed out of the deal that I'm doing, I could technically go out and just market it again and try to do it. But I'm just taking maybe the quote unquote easier route of just buying it myself. And then the dispo is just going to be the MLS. That's not me procruing buyers. That's the MLS doing it.
So what do you do when you close in that property to limit your time on market going on the MLS? Like, do you have a way that you structure like your offer, your total package with the deal to make it stand out versus the other properties that are probably similar in the neighborhood?
Well, I will be the lowest price one. I know that.
So that's with that. Totally. Yeah. So that's a great way to do it, especially if you're wholesaling. Yeah. We'll typically do that too. We'll be like 5% lower than any other property, but like not so far below where it's kind of like a red flag for retail buyers, but just low enough that people go, oh, okay. Like this is the deal that's going to come up in the downward trending market.
Yeah. And so something like that. And we have our final walkthrough on Monday. We're going to close Tuesday. And I actually have the photographer that we use coming with me. And she's just going to take pictures of some of the units while we're there too, for like a professional style. So that way when we go listing, we'll have the professional pictures. We already did the appraisal up front because the buyer had it. So I'll have that if I need it for like, putting in the additional documents on the MLS, something like that. Nice. And just kind of blasting it out and see what happens. I mean, I don't know what it is in your market, but like you could spend a couple of days trying to wholesale or like dispo a deal. And then you could buy it listed on the MLS and you can sell it to someone you never even heard of before. Because I mean, to be honest, there's so many agents and the agents have buyers that won't show up on a regular like list polling thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we run into that a lot. Or what we've started doing is working more with agents on dispo. Like we've had several deals recently that they have like a one-time investor buyer that thinks that they need to go through a real estate agent for that. And, we just have people that kind of have that clientele and they will bring buyers to us. And what's great is then you get that buyer's information and now they're on your buyer's list.
Yeah. Well, we've done that and they're like, I need to run this through my agent. I'm like, I have no idea why, but okay, it's coming out of your pocket.
I know, totally. Do you have anything with that property that you think will limit you from being able to get what you want for it off the bat? Like if you're looking at it, you're like, well, it's kind of on a busy street. The layout's kind of weird. The roof is kind of old.
The only thing that gives me some hesitation, which is what the buyer is doing, is the area is not super great. So I don't know. It's not like a long-term hold for me. And it is off a busy street, but it has off-street parking on a side street that's not busy, if that makes sense. So, but the roof's less than 3 years old, has vinyl windows. It is on a boiler, which is kind of like a red flag to some people here because they don't want to pay for the heating. But, other than that, but we're buying it at such a good price compared to the rent that it's bringing in. Like my whole... Yeah, it's a 3-unit building. My holding costs, if like me collecting rent during the time that I'm holding it, I'll even with hard money, will be break even.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, dude, so it's like like I'm protecting my downside, I guess.
The fact that you guys are even still able to sell, I mean, we've been doing loans in your market. Your guys' market cash flow is pretty strong still. The fact that you can still sell multifamilies like that on the market is pretty sweet. Like out here, dude, we're getting so many MLS leads right now that are multifamily properties, like, duplexes, triplexes, and the properties are fine. Like they're decent, but the problem is people have been dropping the property price. There's just no buyers for them at all. Right. And
is it because they don't cash flow at all?
Well, they can, but like not enough for like the property values. Right. And the issue we have as well here is, so the rents have basically capped. The property values reached a certain point. And so now the issue is, as property values went up when interest rates were low, people are getting to the point where they're starting to like get them listed at like below tax assessed value, which is like feels bad to people. And they cash flow like enough that people are like, well, if I can't get the price I want, I might as well just like sit on it.
Yeah.
So you just have this big stalemate. But then people that do want to sell them, they have kind of like unrealistic price expectations. And even if you're trying to negotiate seller financing or something like that, they always want to have like a really short balloon because their goal was to get the capital out. And then it's like, well, I don't want my problem to be your problem. But they cash flow okay. Like it's not great, but it's just not like what you see. It's not a freaking triplex for mid 200s. Here a triplex is going to be like 600.
Yeah, exactly. We have a purchase price of 175 and the rents are 3,100 a month as it sits.
Yeah, see, that's insane. Yeah, so like a duplex here, we have one right now. We're trying to negotiate seller finance on. The duplex is probably worth like 450, and then the rents on both units is I think it's like between the two is like 3,500. So it'll cash flow a little bit, but not a lot for the down payment you have to bring.
There's a guy that I know who's in Pace's sub 2 group, but he's like somewhat competent. And they just bought a place where the seller did, they basically used a DSCR loan for a 50% LTV. And then the seller carried another 25% of the LTV. Mm-hmm. So he was able to get some of his money out, like the 25% equity, but then carried a second at a very low LTV to him at like a 0% rate. There's one of the times where I'm like, okay, you can't make a business out of this, but this actually makes sense where everyone kind of wins. So
they got the DSCR at 50% so they could get a lower rate on the DSCR. That's called fraud, homie. Like you will get that shit called. Like that is one of the big sort of scenarios that we've seen a ton of fraud in the Northeast right now is these kind of false second positions that are like that, because what it's doing is it is affecting the underwriting on that first loan and getting people a lower rate. And then so what'll happen is, and this is what I've learned about this industry, which is actually pretty interesting, is you will have the company that you get your DSCR loan through, whether it's a Kiavi or somebody else, right? Or SLA Capital, you should be getting them through. And it will go through and we'll have like our hedge fund provider that actually gives the money for that. They will then take that fund, that loan, and they will sell it again to like cheaper money, like bigger money, right? And what that bigger money though can do is they can do what's called a callback. Whereas if they go through and they decide, and they have 5 years to do this, by the way, they can go and they can do a callback and they can go to like our fund provider and say, hey, you need to buy our loan back from us because what you sold us is not actually what you told us it was. And that's part of like that relationship that you have to set up with like the big money to sell stuff at cheap rates. And so what can happen is they do that. And then who is the fund provider going to go after? They're going to go after your lender that you talk to. And then who's that person going to go after? They're going to go after you and they're going to sue your ass. And it's going to be extremely easy because at the top of the chain, the lawsuit is ultimately coming from the hedge funds, and they're not going to let some little punk in Pace Morby's group walk away with anything, dude. So that's essentially where that risk comes from.
Yeah. And you just had that lending conference. Maybe we can take away your takeaways from that too. But like,
yeah,
when I actually just first heard that, it didn't sound like fraud was the intent, but I guess intent doesn't really matter as long as it's illegal or not.
Well, I guarantee you that it played into their numbers because they probably went through and they were like, well, if we bought it, because they put 25% down at one point.
Yeah.
Right. So I guarantee you that they went, well, if I put 25% down to get a DSCR purchase with 75%, that it would probably be at like, I don't know, 7.5, whatever it is.
Sure.
But if I go and I put quote unquote 50% down, I'm going to get it at 6.25. Right. And then I'm probably going to get the second position from the seller at like an extra like 5%. So my blended rate's going to be significantly lower.
Yeah, I know it's principal only payment.
Principal only. So he's basically just adding onto the equity at such an immense amount, and he's probably overpaid for it a little. I paid full market, so the seller's stoked. Yeah, and so that DSCR lender could absolutely call that, and he would get in big trouble. Oh yeah. But so
I won't disclose any more information on that one.
Yeah, I'm guessing that I know who they are based off your thing. So I'll no, it's stuff like that is they're cracking down on it. So yeah, Dan and I, we went to this big private lending conference in Newport Beach last week. And one of the things that I realized right away that's different from like real estate meetups is like lending guys, because this was like a pretty big wig conference. So the company that put it on was like the biggest law firm for private lenders in the country. And they basically put on those things for all their clients. And finance guys make like actual money, right? Like you go to a lot of real estate stuff, people have like wealth, quote unquote. They're not like, you don't really meet a lot of dudes that are like making money, right? And so I would imagine that probably half the people at this thing are taking home personally 7 figures plus through their businesses. And like, they're like just normal dudes. They're not even like douchey finance bros. They're just like everyone else that you meet. They're all cool.
Was there a Patagonia shop set up somewhere?
Yeah, lots of vests. Yeah. But there were a few, dude. It was honestly a racket. And Dan and I were I don't want to say, we definitely weren't the degenerates, but we were definitely like the misfits. Especially like they all have like really serious like family names, you know, and we're over here with Sir Lensalot LLC, which was a hit, by the way. Honestly, people dug it. Like a lot of people sought us out because they saw us on like the list. I'm like,
you guys have done a load for me, and the title of people are like, "Is this legit?" I'm like, "Yes, yeah, I guess it is." I know it doesn't sound like it, but it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but. So people like are making like actual money, and then being around people that are talking about things in like hundreds of millions of dollars instead of hundreds of thousands is pretty nuts. But one of the biggest topics right now is around all the fraud that's happening, like the stuff that you're talking about, right? And so you're seeing it there. And the second position fraud is like a big thing. They're talking about a lot because what you'll see is, as they put it, you will have a not arm's length second position loan, either with like a seller or a business partner or a parent or whatever. And what they use that to get better rates than if they were just doing it as a full like standard loan, right? And then what happens if it's like a family member or something is they go and they get that DSCR loan, which has the quote unquote, you know, second position or whatever that's on there. And this is people that were kind of doing it legit. And then what that person does is they just like give them the money back. Right. So then it becomes not really like a fully, not like a full like LTV loan. Right. But then what they'll do a lot is you'll see people that have these first positions, second positions, they go to do a rate and term refinance with the full debt, but they're basically treating it like a cash out. Right.
Yeah. Because they didn't have the second part of that lon.
It didn't actually exist. Yeah. It didn't actually exist. Right. And so there's a lot of stuff that's going on. And there was like this multi 9-figure fraud that went on in the Northeast with a ton of properties up there. And so that's put it on a lot of people's radars. And I would imagine stuff like you just talked about is going to start getting investigated here very, very soon.
Well, I remember when rates started going up. So 2 points to this is when rates started going up, everyone was like, hey, you know, these lenders kind of turned a blind eye to the due on sale clause because, you know, they were making money regardless. But if they have a loan out there at 3%, 4%, and they see it change hands and they can reissue that loan at 6, 7%, now they're incentivized to go do that. When rates were going down, they were not. So we could definitely see more of that because lenders make more money on the front end of the loan. Everybody knows that. And then the second part is I listened to a podcast with Melody Wright, who's I've talked about on this podcast before. And she said that she's starting to see a lot of crackdown on the false owner occupied mortgages.
Oh yeah, tons.
Like where people basically say, I'm going to move in this, and they either A, they never do, or B, they move out. I think it's a year if it's an FHA, but they just said, hey, I intend to live here, and I never did.
Yeah. Yeah. You're seeing that, or on the investor side, what you're seeing a lot of is people getting quote unquote bridge loans, and they're moving into them because they can't qualify for a Fannie Freddie loan because of debt to income, but it's easier to get a bridge loan, right? Which is basically like it's rental ready short-term loan. And they will get these bridge loans, they will move into them, and then they will basically just keep extending the bridge loan. And sure, it's at 10%, but they don't care, but they can't actually pay off the loan. They've overpaid for it, all these different things. And so we're seeing that a lot as well. But
there was a time we were flipping a house, and it was a good part of town. And Amanda, my wife, and I were like, hey, we might move into this. And the hard money lender's like, I'd never heard that from you.
Yeah, don't say anything.
Yeah, because if my entity owned it, and then me personally is going to buy it, that's not an arm's length transaction. So getting a 95% LTV, they would be very frowned upon, right, on something like that. So
yeah, man. So
I didn't know that at the time, but that makes sense now that you think about it.
Yeah, and it's funny. Like now that I've been on the other side for the most of the year as a lender, there's so many things that used to piss me off as a borrower that totally make sense now, honestly, and. It's like, it's annoying. It's unfortunate. And it's frustrating how much time getting some of these loans and stuff takes, but there is like a lot more reason behind it.
I still think it's an example of how a few bad actors make it worse for everybody else though. Totally,
dude. Well, and it's been made worse as well, because a lot of the bad actors are people that are overseas, right? So they can't even be sued, right? Because there's a whole other like ball game if people are doing stuff overseas and they're kind of like concealing who they are. So a lot of stuff in the Northeast, that was like a big issue, is it was these people that were out of like Dubai that were like doing all these things and essentially just like stealing all this private debt. And so there's that piece of it. And then you also have a lot of people that are doing it with ill intent from the start that fully know what they're doing. And so it's not even driven by ignorance, but like they are gaming the system. And that's what really passes it down to everyone else, is because once the loopholes have been intentionally exploited, they really, really try to make sure that people can't do it again. And then everyone is facing more scrutiny because they don't know if you're also one of those people.
Yeah. I just can only imagine what it was in like the 70s, 80s, 90s. Like my dad told me he bought his house and like no income verification. Basically, just like it was a handshake, and then like the deed was exchanged.
That's why all the freaking boomers do. That's also why they believe weird stuff. Like you had this in our notes, this like Facebook thing that's been shared around. I've seen it a couple of times, and I feel like this is the perfect example of just like fake news just going viral with, if you use comments, this doesn't make sense. So basically the story is that a guy held like this, he wasn't able to sell his house for like say $1 million, whatever it was. And so he held the lottery and tickets and sold them for like $1, $5, whatever it was, and essentially sold $2 million worth of tickets. And then whoever won the lottery got the house. And so he actually made $2 million instead of $1 million selling his house. And I've seen this shared by like smooth-brained freaking social media people that just latch on to everything that doesn't make freaking sense. And they are always like, this is like such a great idea. Like, can we do this in our market? All sort of stuff. And I'm like, I read this, and the first thing I think of is you can't just hold like an illegal lottery,
yep.
right? Like you're just you're having an underground like gambling thing. And then also too, if he does get $2 million, the IRS is going to come and be like, hey, what the fuck?
Yeah,
like,
right.
You don't just like get that money. But people don't understand is when you have $2 million go through an account, the bank tells the IRS that happened.
I think it's anything over like, it used to be like people were bitching about the $600 Venmo transaction, like whatever.
I know.
But now it's like 10 grand. I think anything over 10 grand, they're like, that gets audited no matter what.
Yeah, dude, easily. Yeah.
And in real estate, those transactions happen a lot.
Yeah, like all the time, right? And like it can be even if you have one large transaction that goes through an account that isn't quote unquote seasoned, that will flag the IRS. Mm-hmm. So like what can happen is if you have like say an old checking account, like, and I know people this has happened to, they start their real estate business. They've kind of been someone that lives paycheck to paycheck. Then all of a sudden they close like a $50,000, $60,000 deal. And for the first time in 12 years, $50,000 suddenly goes to that account. Boom, the IRS just found out, and your chances of getting audited over the next 3 years are significantly higher.
I'm surprised I didn't get audited my first year after I quit my W-2. Because we had a pretty big income difference change.
Yeah. I mean, but you were coming from a career, right? You still were having some money coming in, right? Like it wasn't like you were a gas station attendant and then all of a sudden you're flipping houses and making 50 grand a pop.
Yeah.
You know, and I do think that they look at that. Also, your chance of getting audited are relatively low in general. But if all of a sudden you had $2 million, I bet that would be.
Yeah. And they look at it and they're like, oh, the deed exchanged hands for $1 and you have 2 million. Like, this doesn't make sense, right? Like,
doesn't make any sense. Yeah. But you know, the fake, it's just, I don't know. That's just
you said you had another piece of fake news that went along with it.
Yeah. Well, this is a sad side piece. I was literally saying this when I was getting on here, of how shameless everyone has gotten with like even like creating fake news for clout or like fake things. I don't know if you've seen Will Smith's tour he's been going on. He's been like doing his like hip hop tour with his current midlife crisis after slapping Chris Rock a while ago. And there was like this hype video that I've been seeing shared around Reddit, and it's obviously AI because like people have like these signs and stuff that like don't make any sense. And you see people's like hands like morphing into their faces and different things. I'm like, they had like meetings, like they like put this together. I'm like, yeah, this looks great. And then they sent it out as like a promotional thing. I'm like, did they intentionally make it so bad that people talk about it? Or is it like they're just that ignorant to like how, like they just think people are that stupid now and they're not going to question anything. They're going to just pass it off as legitimate. I have no idea.
I don't know. The more that the word goes on, I think people are just dumb.
I mean, that's a big part of it. And like, honestly, it's recognized now how hard it is to believe anything.
Yeah.
You know, like there's so much stuff that's out there that's being AI generated and is falsified and, you know, is spun from like different angles, you know, and it's like, politically, it's on both sides of the aisles. It's like through every company that you talk to, it's so easy to create fake reviews, fake testimonials, fake everything. I'm like, it's all bullshit. Like, honestly,
even in like in our world in the local thing, like, so I had dinner last night with two guys who are legit operators. We all do about the same size ish of volume a year. But we've talked about other, you know, people in our market who we don't have great opinions of, to put it lightly. But one of these guys is used to own a hard money lending company. And I don't know how much he can legally disclose or whatnot, but basically he's like, these people are not doing as well as they say they're doing on all, you know, social media accounts, because he's seen the financials. Right. And so it's just kind of going back to you can't believe fake news or the much news. You also can't believe the people who might even be in your local market that are saying, you know, we're killing it. We're doing 5 houses a month or whatever. And they're not making any money.
Totally, man. And that shit happens a lot. We had a borrower request from somebody that quite a few people know, and their credit is poor. And we saw that they currently have 4 collections against them. And I'm like, what is that? Right? Like, you know, you're like, when you're going through and you're trying, if you've been doing slimy stuff, when you try to do legitimate business, things will eventually come out, you know. But like you said, it's all illusions. It's all smoke and mirrors. I don't know, man. I don't, it's kind of frightening to think about what that will lead to. I would say just not even just in terms of like marketing, just like with people's brains, you know, like there's also this inclination right now for people to question everything and nothing at the same time, right? Like everything's just such an echo chamber that if it confirms their existing biases, they'll believe it. If it questions it at all, then they won't.
Dismiss it 100% from the start.
And they're like, there's not a desire to learn anything.
Yep.
You know,
it's funny because we like rail on boomers a lot, but they're the ones that grew up as like, don't believe everything you see on the internet. And now they're the most triggered people that you see on the internet.
I know, dude. They'll believe everything on the internet. God damn. And they're complaining about putting our kids in front of iPads. Just stop putting grandma in front of a fucking iPad. Like, Jesus Christ, dude.
Yeah. And I, you know, someone who has a almost 1-year-old now, I'm just like, fuck, man. Like, what are you going to do when the kid wants to like, I was like, I don't know, man. We're going to try to limit screen time, but I don't go too far into that. It's just wild.
Yeah, it's just wild. But, so yeah, what do you see in business wise right now? I know we had a good KPI discussion with our scale group on Tuesday. And you
I
had
missed
some
that call.
notes here. I know you missed it, but I'm bringing it up because on Tuesday, it's funny. A lot of the trends that you're seeing are very similar to what a lot of other people are seeing as well. So go through your stuff here, Dylan.
Yeah. So like at this dinner last night, these guys, we're basically just going over all business stuff. And I'll just read my notes I have here with Mike. Is the cost per lead slightly increasing overall, but mostly in like the PPL / pay-per-click channels. It's still about 250-ish for direct mail, but it's like 450 to 470 for really any other channel.
Really?
Yeah. And cost per deal slightly increasing overall in general. Mine still hovering around 2,500, but the guys I was with around 3,500 to $4,000. Flips taking longer to sell, more seller concessions, that kind of stuff, both seasonality and just how the market is. And the last thing I wanted to point out too is like the revenue per deal. Mine was the lowest of the three with about 15,000. And what we kind of talked about last night was that could just be a self-fulfilling prophecy for the fact that maybe we're just underwriting for a 15K deal and that's just what we're hitting. While if they're underwriting for a 20 to 25K deal, they're getting that more often than I am, not because we have different leads. Our dispo process is much different, just because they're getting it at a price that they underwrote for from the beginning.
Yeah, and that could also be affecting their cost per deal as well.
True.
There's a higher if they are being less competitive because they're chasing larger profit margins. But yeah, I mean, so we found our numbers actually in Spokane are super similar to yours too, which is interesting because we're pretty different markets. We're similar. I don't know, how big is Cincinnati?
We've asked this question before. I don't know. The MSA is pretty big.
It's like 1 million people. So it's bigger than us, right? But price points are quite a bit lower over there versus here. But the investor population there is much larger. So it's going to be easier to find buyers. But like, so our cost per deal as of yesterday was right at $3,000. It was like $2,900 and $998, right? So like right there, that has stayed pretty consistent since like last year. It's increased like a tiny bit. Like last year we were like 2,800, so it's increased like $200. Our cost per deal has increased quite a bit. Our cost per lead. So our cost per lead last year was like $180. Now we're sitting close to
actually
300.
Really good,
yeah. It was, and now we're sitting close to 300, right? So it's almost doubled. The big thing for us is our revenue. Period. Right. So I was looking at it. And so right now for 2025, we have done 62 transactions and our current revenue is like right around $900,000. Okay. If you go back to 2021, when it was just me and Dan, like back when we started the show, it was just me and Dan and 1 AM. Our total revenue was about 1.45 million on 42 transactions.
Wow. That's
right.
Nuts.
Because we had some home runs in there. We had like a huge, like $100,000 deal. Our average deal size at that point was 27,000. Our average deal size right now is 15, just like yours. Right. Yep. And so that just shows how compressed the market has gotten. And our return on ad spend right now, sitting at about a 5x on average. So, it's the market's changed, right? And I think that a lot of that is just the general sentiment around real estate, stuff getting more sophisticated, more people advertising to the same people makes it so that there's just generally less opportunities. Also, buyer appetite is significantly less than it has been in the past.
Yep. But, buyers specifically, you could sell to, at least here, you could sell to people who wanted rentals. And now a lot of times they just don't because they don't really make any money. So
I know.
Now it's only flippers. And then a lot of the rentals you could sell in worse off neighborhoods because people are just seeking cash flow. And now this won't touch them.
I know for sure. And that's the thing is you can't sell the bad ones. The really good properties you can't sell, right? Because people can't afford them. So you're kind of stuck with just like the middle tier, which traditionally have been like the least profitable deals, honestly.
Yep.
You can't get them for quite as big of a discount as the shitty ones, and they don't have as much potential upside as the nice ones. And so you're kind of stuck with that.
It's also so ironic. I don't even know if it's ironic is the right word, but how many deals that we talked about last night that we all three had touched at some point. And we talked about the time, like how someone else's new leads are your old leads and vice versa. Literally, there was a deal where I offered first at 50 grand. She wouldn't take it. So we went up to 75, couldn't dispo it, canceled the contract. My buddy got it for like 65, couldn't sell it. Well, sold it for like 65. Then they price reduced it to 50, which is my original contract. And they agreed to it. And that's kind of because the seller had already gone through the ringer a couple of times, and she's probably just fed up with it at this point. Right. But
totally, dude.
I was first, and that sometimes being first is a first mover advantage. Sometimes it's not.
It's this entire business of being the right place in the right time. So we had one not too long ago that we were competing with another guy. He offered, we offered 190. He offered 210,000. He's a direct flipper. So he'll always buy it higher than we will. He has a lot more flips. Rejected both of us. He went and did his other stuff. We followed up. 6 months later, we got it at 190,000. And we sold it to him for 205.
There you go. But that's exactly the process. Yeah.
I know. So it's an interesting time. I don't know. It's still a good time to be doing the business because there's not a lot of people. And that's what we spent a lot of time talking about last week. So I think this is still a really strong business in general.
Yeah.
But it's just changed a lot, and I think that when it comes to, I would say, the expectations around what things look like, you just kind of need to be prepared for that and kind of like the volatility of it. Because the cash drag as well, like that isn't going away. Still an expensive business to run. Your return on ad spend goes down, but you still have to be spending the same amount every month to make money. But
the other two guys I was with, they spend more than I do. And they both were like, Dylan, I don't know how you because I think my return on ad spend's like 7.5, almost 8 right now, which is really good. Yeah. But to me, that just means I need to spend more money, right? Because it probably should be down a little bit more. And I don't care if my return on ad spend is 6, my revenue goes up more than, right? That's a machine you just keep feeding.
Yeah, for sure. But anyways, is there anything you're going to be changing about your business after having that meeting? I think it's always good to touch base.
I'm quitting PPL.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah, I'm quitting PPL, dial up some more direct mail more frequently. And then I think I'm going to start marketing to Northern Kentucky, which I haven't done in a while, but it's such an easy thing that I could tap into. So
yeah, it's like right there. That's a pretty hot market, dude. We've done a handful of loans down there. And I know that, Lexington is a pretty popular.
That's a little bit too far for me.
That's too far.
Yeah, it'd be like an hour and a half for me, but there's Northern Kentucky, there's 3 counties and they have similar numbers to Cincinnati, honestly, as far as price to rents, prices and stuff. And I don't know.
I just assume Kentucky in general only has 3 counties. It has Kentucky County, Whiskey County, and Lexington County.
You should come down, and if you like bourbon, man, there are bourbon trails over here. People come from all over the world for that.
Nah, man, I don't drink alcohol. My body's a temple, okay?
I have literally seen you drink alcohol, Mike, so I know that's not true.
Nah, I would never do that. Yeah. But, awesome, man. Well, anything else here to wrap up?
No, I think that's it for me, man, unless you got something.
I don't think so. Man, that was a productive phone call without Dan to chime in and fuck it up every 10 minutes.
I did get 4 or 5 phone calls during that podcast, so see what these are.
Oh, there you go. You better get on those.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding, Dan. I know you won't listen anyway because you're listening to freaking K-pop Demon Slayer or whatever you listen to with your
He's
kids.
Listening to the native Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce drama.
He definitely is. He is so cued in with really weird stuff. There's so many things that he'll ask me about. I'm like, why do you know about this? I don't know. He's like, oh, it's because of my kids. I'm like, you can only blame your 2.5 and 7-year-old for so long. Honestly, but that's all right. That's what his algorithm, he gives him what he reacts to. So that's why he at least isn't spouting a lot of fake news yet, but he's not quite that old. We'll give him time. So awesome, guys. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. You have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next time.
See ya.